What captures a mind isn't force, but fascination. Not a shout, but a whisper the brain can't stop hearing. We're about to begin a 2-hour journey into the deepest corridors of psychological influence, into the quiet mechanics of how a thought becomes an obsession, how a person becomes a puzzle, and how presence, when wielded with precision, is far less powerful than absence. This is not a manual for manipulation, but a dissection of a timeless, often invisible, human dynamic. It operates in boardrooms, on screens, and in the silent spaces between two people. To understand it is to understand a fundamental lever of the human psyche. If you're ready to explore the unspoken rules of attention and influence, you're in the right place. Let's begin. The entire architecture rests on a single, counterintuitive principle. The human mind does not fall in love with answers. It becomes entangled in questions. It is not satiated by clarity. It is ignited by a subtle, persistent tension. The deepest form of influence, therefore, has nothing to do with direct persuasion or overt declaration. It lives in the psychological underground, in the region where a person does not even realize they are being guided. They believe they are navigating by their own compass, all while the terrain itself has been subtly altered. The goal is not to be an open book, desperate to be read and understood. That path leads to being quickly understood, categorized, and filed away. The alternative is to become a narrative with missing chapters. A book with no cover, no summary, promising a story that is felt but not yet told. This invisible promise is the first, faint chain. Because the brain abhors an information vacuum, it must fill the gaps. And when you become the primary source of those gaps, the mind turns to you, again and again, trying to complete a picture you deliberately keep unfinished. This begins with a deliberate break from predictability. Most interaction is a script of expectation. A question gets an answer, warmth is met with warmth, interest is mirrored. To break this script is to create a cognitive ripple. It is appearing not with excess, but with precision. A sentence that ends a moment too soon. A look that holds just beyond the comfortable point, suggesting a thought left unspoken. A compliment that is genuine yet layered with an ambiguity that lingers, making the recipient wonder not just about the compliment, but about the mind that formed it. And then, the most crucial component, the strategic withdrawal. You disappear, not in anger, not in protest, but as a natural, calm transition. This absence is the fertile ground where the real work begins. In the void you leave, their mind begins to labor. It replays, it interprets, it projects. What did that mean? Why did he say it like that? What is he really thinking? They are no longer interacting with you, but with the version of you their own mind is constructing to fill the silence. They are trying to understand what feels different, and in that effort, they move further from the objective truth and deeper into their own subjective, emotional terrain. The person who controls the interpretation controls the narrative. By refusing to provide easy explanations, you force them to author their own. And those explanations are always, inevitably, a mirror. They reveal far more about their own insecurities, desires, and hopes than they ever could about you. The key is stark in its simplicity. You do not need to be extraordinary. You only need to become temporarily impossible to categorize. Their own cognition will work night after night, trying to fit the enigmatic piece into the puzzle of their experience. What grows in this soil is not love, not in any pure sense. It is cognitive dissonance, a low-grade, persistent unease. It is the itch of an unresolved equation. And this unease is one of the most potent addictions known to psychology because it demands resolution. The brain seeks homeostasis, a state of balance and understanding. You have introduced a gentle, persistent imbalance. So it seeks you, the presumed source of the answer, to restore equilibrium. But you never provide the full answer. You only offer another fragment, another clue that deepens the mystery. A moment of warmth that feels like a breakthrough, followed by a polite, detached neutrality. A gesture of interest that seems calculated in its timing. You become the imbalance they are constantly trying to correct. And in that endless process of correction, they think. And in that thinking, an attachment forms. This is where we move from static mystery to dynamic strategy, the calculated oscillation between proximity and distance. This is not the erratic hot and cold of insecurity. This is a deliberate rhythm, composed with the cold precision of a chess player. Sudden, focused closeness lowers defenses, opens emotional doors, and creates a shared warmth. It is the reward. Then, the deliberate, calm distance slams those doors shut, not with a bang, but with a quiet click. The sudden absence after presence creates a psychological vacuum. The mind, noticing something has been taken away, begins to assign it a value it never considered when it was present. It starts to miss what it never truly possessed. This absence is the slow-acting agent. It seeps into daily consciousness. The true art lies in making the other person believe they are navigating their own emotional world, while you, from afar, regulate the very rhythm of that world, the pacing of conversations, the weight of silences, the timing of responses. You reply when it is least expected. You become silent precisely when social script demands a reply. Each broken expectation, each subverted pattern, reorganizes their focus. They begin to monitor. They watch for your patterns. They analyze your timings. They decode your minimal signals. Their mind becomes conditioned to seek you out. This is not affection, it is surveillance. And the watcher is always, already, emotionally invested. The common error is to believe desire is bred through constant presence. But authentic, magnetic desire is born from the fusion of intermittent reward and palpable absence. When you are a rare event, their mind, left to its own devices in your absence, begins to build a myth, an idealized character, an amplified version shaped not by your mundane reality, but by their hopes, their imagination, their specific voids. Because they no longer have consistent access to the real you, they believe in the fiction they authored. And that fiction is always more compelling, more tailor-made to their psyche than any truth could be. You are no longer competing with other people. You are competing with a fantasy they built themselves. And you will always win in a contest against a phantom. This oscillation works because it masterfully activates two opposing psychological forces within them, the fear of loss and the hope of gain. Fear keeps them alert, vigilant, emotionally adrenalized. Hope keeps them trapped in the game, believing the next move will bring clarity or connection. It becomes a self-sustaining cycle that feels organic, emotional, like undeniable chemistry. But this chemistry is often just the somatic signature of a psychological pattern expertly implanted. The thrill of the unpredictable reward, the ache of the unresolved. The strategic mind offers crumbs of hope, a uniquely penetrating glance, an ambiguous sentence that feels deeply personal, a one-time compliment that is never repeated. Then, it withdraws the supply with serene silence. They try to chart your movements, but there is no logical map, only their own emotional reactions to your orchestrated stimuli. The most perverse element is that their attempts to resist, to act indifferent, to reclaim dignity, only deepen the entanglement. To pretend not to care, they must first think about you to perform the act of not caring. Their indifference becomes a performance, a stage built directly over a foundation of obsession. The true mastery is in its subtlety. You never declare your feelings. You never show overt, needy interest. You never fully give yourself away. You simply become the keeper of the emotional scale, ensuring it is always tilted, however slightly, in a direction that maintains the tension. You are the constant, low-frequency dissonance in their mental soundtrack, the point that refuses to fit into a logical category. Your voice echoes in their silence because they are the ones replaying it. Their mind, exhausted from searching for a coherent narrative, arrives at a single, self-perpetuating solution: to keep thinking about you until it all makes sense. But it never will. That is the silent engine of the entire process. At its deepest level, this dynamic forces a profound shift. Their mind is not falling for you. It is falling in love with its own intense reactions to you. Your actions become less important than the internal spectacle they trigger. Your next move is to gently intensify every micro-doubt, every uncertainty, every emotional contradiction you have already planted. A person who thinks of you constantly is not pondering your biography. They are wrestling with what you represent, an unresolved emotional equation. And as long as that equation lacks a solution, they remain mentally captive. You do not provide answers. You only open doors in their mind that lead to darker, more intricate corridors of possibility. Each corridor forks into new scenarios. Each scenario consumes another hour of their imagination. You are not competing for their attention. You have quietly hijacked the mechanism of attention itself. Now we introduce the weapon of calculated contradiction. The human psyche cannot tolerate unresolved paradoxes for long. When you are warm and revealing one day, and cold, distant, or ironically detached the next, their cognitive machinery goes into overdrive. It must reconcile these two opposing data points into a single, coherent theory of you. But the more effort it expends, the more elusive a solid conclusion becomes. This oscillation is not indecision, it is tactical. It plunges their mind into a state of hyperinterpretation, where every gesture, every pause, every casual remark is scrutinized for meaning. Constant analysis is merely attachment wearing an intellectual mask. The moment someone is analyzing you, they are already in the game. A brilliant, if cruel, side effect of this is the awakening of a silent, internal competition, not with rivals, but with themselves. They begin to compare the version of themselves they believe you perceive with the version they wish you to see. This spawns a powerful emotional self-interrogation. Am I interesting enough? Does he find me special? Did I say something that pushed him away? Was I too ordinary? These questions replicate like a virus in the quiet of their mind. Each one forces a mental return to you, scanning memory for clues. Dependence germinates the moment they start to tweak and improve their own projected image, striving to become a person worthy of deciphering your silence. You have gained control not by asking for anything, but by becoming the silent standard against which they measure themselves. This contradiction serves another master. It creates unpredictable emotional impact. Neuroscience shows that the brain releases far more dopamine, the neurotransmitter of craving and reward, in response to unpredictable rewards than to predictable ones. By offering rare, focused attention and then withdrawing it, you engineer sharp emotional peaks and valleys. Those peaks become addictive. They begin to crave the next moment of warmth, the next cryptic sign of interest. When it arrives, its impact is magnified tenfold by its scarcity. A simple compliment from you, in this context, carries more emotional weight than a dozen from a consistently available source because it is a rare, unpredictable reward. You transform from a person into an irregular reinforcement schedule, the most powerful engine for creating behavioral compulsion known to psychology. Now, add the layer of the inverted mirror. This is the technique of offering vague, yet seemingly profound, interpretations about them. You use short, loaded statements that feel like revelations. You feel more than you show. You try to control everything, but you're afraid of losing it. There's an intensity in you that most people never see. These statements are universally resonant, yet feel piercingly personal. They create the powerful illusion that you see through their facade, that you understand a hidden, truer self. Feeling profoundly understood is a deeply addictive emotional drug. It forges a psychological bond where they feel exposed yet strangely captivated. The trick is that you, the source of this understanding, remain an enigma. No matter how much they feel seen, you remain just out of focus. They feel they are almost there, almost deciphering you, almost unlocking you. But almost is a perpetual state. It is the absence of closure that keeps the story alive, and a story without an ending is a story that never releases its hold. Then, introduce the third element, the crafted impression that they have an impact on you. Even if they don't, you leave subtle, ambiguous signals. A look that breaks away reluctantly. A thoughtful pause before responding to something they said. A passing mention days later that references a point they made. This activates the powerful instinct of conquest. Now they believe they can affect you, that they are making dents in your armor, that they are reaching a place others haven't. This belief is the hook. You provide just enough feedback to sustain the illusion of progress, while in reality, they are walking a circular path you designed. They are trapped between the person who seems to feel something and the person who disappears, between the mystery that challenges them and the hope that feeds them, between the doubt that consumes and the occasional reward that addicts. This process transforms simple interest into a psychological labyrinth. And no one willingly abandons a labyrinth when they are convinced the treasure is just around the next corner. We now enter a deeper zone, where the influence becomes ambient, almost spiritual. It's no longer about direct actions, but about leaving indelible impressions, emotional landmarks that feel more significant than the events that birthed them. Your words, because they are few and placed with care, echo. Your silences become canvases for their projections. They start relating more to the mental avatar of you they've built, the idea, the potential, the mystery, than to your actual, flawed human presence. The chasm between the real you and the imagined you becomes the space where you wield ultimate influence without lifting a finger. Here, you begin to manipulate the phenomenon of constant comparison. They start measuring everyone else against the standard you unconsciously established. And it is a brutal standard because it is based on scarcity and depth, not on abundance and ease. Other people, no matter how kind or present, seem obvious, simple, too readily available. Others give everything. You always hold something in reserve. Others explain themselves. You invite interpretation. Others try to impress. You create an environment where they feel the need to impress you. The game has been reversed. When they start editing themselves, rehearsing conversations, and mentally preparing for an interaction with you, they have lost all emotional neutrality. You have become their internal reference point. This is where you deploy perhaps the most elegant weapon, the aura of selective interest. You do not show direct, targeted interest in them. Instead, you demonstrate a general, high selectivity. You make vague, principled statements. I find most people uninteresting. It's rare for me to feel a real connection. I don't have time for superficiality. They immediately, instinctively, try to position themselves as the exception to your rule. The human desire to be the exception is far more powerful than the desire to be the chosen one from a pool of many. You simultaneously trigger their fear of being ordinary and their ambition to be extraordinary. Their quest for validation from a selectively engaged mind becomes an all-consuming puzzle. Now, introduce emotional ambiguity at the highest level. Never clarify what they are to you. One interaction feels like intimate progress. The next feels like a reset to zero. You are present and warm, then distant as if the previous warmth never existed. This cultivated ambiguity generates a low hum of anxiety, a state of constant emotional alertness. They are always calibrating, always anticipating your next move. This tension marries two core instincts, the drive to conquer and the fear of rejection. From this marriage, a silent, private obsession is born, one they will likely never admit to, even in the privacy of their own thoughts. This ambiguity also creates a vacuum filled by memory. They replay conversations, dissect glances, and reinterpret your words in an endless loop, searching for hidden meaning they missed. They catch themselves rebuilding scenes with you in their mind, imagining alternative dialogues, your reactions, your thoughts. The profound trick here is that in doing so, they are reliving you. They are recreating you within their own consciousness. You become a constant presence not through your effort, but through theirs. Their own mind does the work of binding them to you. This leads to the ultimate Machiavellian shift, the displacement of the emotional axis. Initially, you were a person who appeared and disappeared. Now, you are a mental construct that appears rarely in reality but occupies vast, uncharted territory in their psyche. You minimize your actual investment while their mental investment skyrockets. The less you do, the more they think. The more they think, the less they notice the objective lack of action. This discrepancy births a profoundly one-sided bond, beautifully disguised as a deep, mutual connection. They confuse the intense internal activity you sparked within them for a tangible, external link between you. This cognitive error is the flaw in human design that the entire strategy elegantly exploits. The final, most binding stage is when you cease to be merely a thought and become integrated into their process of self-perception. Their mind no longer processes the world neutrally. Experiences, other people, even their own emotions are filtered through the lens of what would he think? Or how does this relate to that mystery? You have begun to influence not just what they feel, but how they interpret their own actions. The masterstroke is making them believe these adjusted behaviors are expressions of their own free will, their own evolving personality. You plant subtle, commendable traits as ideals. I admire people who speak with calm conviction. There's something powerful about true independence. You then offer minimal, nonverbal reinforcement. a glance of approval, a nod of respect, when they exhibit shades of these traits. Slowly, they begin to embody these qualities, believing they are simply becoming a better version of themselves. But that better version is subconsciously sculpted to align with the values of the enigmatic figure whose approval feels like the ultimate prize. They are not trying to please you directly. They are trying to become someone who could, in theory, solve your riddle. In this, they become bound not to you, but to the idealized self they have constructed in your imagined gaze. This is where the journey ends and the captivity begins. It is no longer about you at all. It is about the labyrinth their own mind built with your initial blueprint. They are chasing the ghost of a resolution, striving to become a person worthy of a mystery, all within the confines of their own skull. The thought of you is no longer just a thought. It is a habitat. And the dirtiest trick of all, the one that transcends any individual tactic, is the understanding that the most powerful form of influence is to become the question someone spends a lifetime trying to answer, long after you've stopped asking anything of them at all. This has been a deep, unflinching look at the architecture of psychological fixation. It's a powerful dynamic, and with understanding comes responsibility. This knowledge shouldn't be used to trap others, but to free yourself, to recognize when these patterns might be influencing you, and to build connections based on transparent authenticity, not addictive mystery. If this exploration resonated with you, if it made you think, then our goal here is accomplished. Your engagement fuels this channel. If you want more deep dives into psychology, power dynamics, and the unseen forces that shape our lives, then do what serves the algorithm and your own curiosity. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. This is a conversation, not a monologue. Tell me in the comments below, what part of this dynamic did you find most fascinating, or perhaps most unsettling? Have you ever experienced either side of this pattern? Let's discuss.